For an entity set citizen, the attribute address is made up of street number, city, and region. This type of attribute in a database is known as galaiskarvadi. A. Complex attribute. B. Derived attribute. C. Composite attribute. D. Multi-valued attribute. Answer. C. Composite attribute. Explanation. A composite attribute is an attribute that can be divided into smaller subparts, which represent more basic attributes with independent meanings. In this case, the attribute address is composed of smaller attributes, street number, city, and region. Each of these sub-attributes has its own meaning, and together they form the composite address. The other options do not fit. Complex attribute. This is not a standard ER model term. Composite is the correct term. Derived. Attribute. An attribute whose value can be calculated or derived from another attribute, e.g. age from date of birth. Multi-valued attribute. An attribute that can hold multiple values for a single entity, e.g. phone numbers. Using the CSS specificity mechanism, determine what color is applied to the element given the following style rules. p.message, color, green, #home #warning, p.message, color, yellow, body #home, div #warning, p.message, color, blue, #warning, p.message, color, white, a dot, green B, blue C, black D, yellow. Answer B, blue. Explanation. CSS specificity determines which style rule is applied when multiple rules target the same element. Specificity is calculated based on the types of selectors used, with the following hierarchy, from highest to lowest priority: inline styles ID selectors, class selectors, attribute selectors, pseudo-classes, type selectors, element names, and pseudo-elements. Let's calculate the specificity for each rule. p.message 0, 0, 1, 1 equals 1 class plus 1 element equals specificity. 0, 1, 1 #home #warning p.message. 2, 0, 1, 1 equals 2 IDs plus 1 class plus 1 element equals specificity. 2, 1, 1 body #home div #warning p.message. 2, 0, 1, 3 equals 2 IDs plus 1 class plus 3 elements equals specificity. 2, 1, 3 #warning p message. 1, 0, 1, 1 equals 1 ID plus 1 class plus 1 element. Specificity 1, 1, 1. Comparison. Rule 3 has the highest specificity. 2, 1, 3. Rule 2 has 2, 1, 1. Rule 4 has 1, 1, 1. Rule 1 has 0, 1, 1. Since Rule 3, body home div warning p.message, color, blue, has the highest specificity, the paragraph will be blue. How are MAC addresses learned and associated with a switch port? A. Port listen / learning. B. Destination, MAC address learning. C. Frame type learning. D. Source, MAC address learning. Answer D. Source MAC address learning. Explanation. Switches learn and associate MAC addresses with specific ports through a process called source MAC address learning. Here's how it works. When a frame arrives at a switch port, the switch examines the source MAC address in the frame header. Learning process. The switch adds an entry to its MAC address table, also called CAM table, that maps the source MAC address to the incoming port number. Forwarding decision. For future frames destined to that MAC address, the switch will know which port to forward them to. Example. If a device with MAC address AA:BB:CC:DD:EE:FF sends a frame through port 3, the switch learns AA:BB:CC:DD:EE:FF, port 3. When another device wants to send to AA:BB:CC:DD:EE:FF, the switch forwards only through port 3. Why not the other options? A. Port, listen, learning, not a standard switching term. B. Destination, MAC address learning. Switches don't learn from destination addresses. They use them for forwarding decisions after learning from source addresses. C. Frame type learning, frame types, Ethernet 2, 802.3, etc. don't determine MAC address port associations. This learning mechanism is fundamental to how Ethernet switches build their forwarding tables and enable efficient, targeted frame delivery instead of broadcasting to all ports. If your college prohibits using any antivirus program on your personal computers or laptops other than the one they provide in order to access the college's local network, what type of policy is this? A. Issue-specific policy. B. General security policy. C. Program security policy. D. System-specific policy. Answer. D. System-specific policy. Explanation. A system-specific policy focuses on security controls and requirements for a particular information system or technology resource. In this case, the policy applies specifically to accessing the college's local network. It mandates the use of a specific antivirus program provided by the college. It applies to a specific system, the college network, rather than the entire organization broadly. Why not the other options? A. Issue-specific policy addresses specific security topics across the organization, like email usage or social media, not tied to a particular system. B. General security policy provides broad, organization-wide security principles and framework. Program security policy relates to the overall security program management and structure for the entire organization. This is a classic example of a system-specific policy because it defines security requirements, mandatory antivirus software, specifically for accessing a particular college resource, the local network, ensuring compatibility, manageability, and security for that specific system. In database terminology, what represents a real-world object or concept from the mini-world, which can be described stored in the database? A. Relationship. B. Attribute. C. Entity. D. Learning domain. Answer. C. Entity. Explanation. In database design and the entity relationship, ER model. An entity represents a real-world object or concept that exists in the mini-world being modeled. Entities can be people, places, things, or concepts that we want to store information about. Examples of entities: student product order, employee department. How entities work. Each entity has attributes that describe its properties. Entities are stored as records or rows in database tables. Entities can participate in relationships with other entities. Why not the other options? A. Relationship. Describes how two or more entities are associated with each other. B. Attribute. Represents a property or characteristic of an entity, e.g., name, age, address. D. Learning domain, not a standard database term. For example, in a university database, student is an entity, student ID, name, major are attributes of the student entity. Enrolls in is a relationship between student and course entities. Select the ultimate goal of risk identification. A. Classify and prioritize assets. B. Specify assets' vulnerability to the threat. C. Identify and inventory asset. D. Identify and prioritize assets. Answer. B. Specify assets' vulnerability to the threat. Explanation. Risk identification is the process of finding, recognizing, and describing risks that could affect an organization's ability to achieve its objectives. The ultimate goal of this process is to specify assets' vulnerability to threats. This means identifying how susceptible each asset is to potential threats and understanding the weaknesses that could be exploited. Why this is the ultimate goal? Risk identification aims to understand the complete risk landscape by identifying assets, recognizing threats, determining vulnerabilities, how susceptible assets are to those threats, understanding the potential impact. This vulnerability assessment is crucial because it connects assets to threats and helps determine the actual risk level. Why not the other options? A. Classify and prioritize assets. This is part of asset management, not the ultimate goal of risk identification. C. Identify and inventory asset. This is an initial step in the process, not the ultimate goal. Identify and prioritize assets. This is important for asset management, but doesn't represent the complete purpose of risk identification. The ultimate value of risk identification lies in understanding how vulnerable assets are to specific threats, which then enables proper risk assessment and treatment decisions. If you play music as a background service, which of the following is not a state in the Android service lifecycle? A. Paused. B. Destroyed. C. Start. D. Running. Answer C. Start explanation. In the Android service lifecycle, start is not a lifecycle state. Here are the actual states in the service lifecycle. Actual service lifecycle states. Created, when the service is first created via onCreate. Started, when the service is started via onStart command. Running, the active state where the service is executing its work. Destroyed, when the service is terminated via onDestroy. Why start is incorrect. Start is an action that triggers the service to begin, not a state itself. The actual state is started or running after the start action completes. In Android service lifecycle callbacks, you have onStart command method, but the state is referred to as started or running. The other options are valid states. A. Paused. Some services can enter a paused state, though less common in services than activities. B. Destroyed. Final state when the service is terminated, e.d. Running. Active state where the service is performing its background work. For a music background service, it would typically transition through created, started, running, possibly paused, destroyed.
What is the most common reason for an unexpected reboot of a computer? A. Memory leak. B. Overheating. C. ESD damage. D. RFI. Answer. B. Overheating. Explanation. Overheating is the most common reason for unexpected reboots because automatic protection. Modern computers have thermal protection systems that automatically shut down or reboot the system when critical temperature thresholds are reached to prevent permanent hardware damage. Common causes of overheating: dust-clogged fans and heat sinks, failed or underperforming CPU fan, poor ventilation around the computer, high ambient room temperatures, dried out thermal paste between CPU and heat sink. Frequency. Overheating issues occur much more frequently in everyday computing than the other options listed. Why not the other options? A. Memory leak. While memory leaks can cause system instability, they more commonly lead to slow performance or application crashes rather than immediate reboots. C. ESD damage, electrostatic discharge. This typically causes permanent hardware failure, not intermittent rebooting. D. RFI, radio frequency interference, rarely causes reboots in modern, well-shielded computer systems. When a computer unexpectedly reboots without warning, overheating is the first and most likely cause to investigate, especially if it occurs during resource-intensive tasks like gaming or video processing. A certificate authority signs a digital certificate with A. Its own private key. B. User's private key. C. User's public key. D. Its own public key. Answer. A. Its own private key. Explanation. In public key infrastructure, PKI, the process works as follows. Certificate creation. When a user requests a digital certificate, they submit their public key and identification information to the certificate authority, CA. Signing process. The CA creates a digital certificate containing the user's public key and information, then signs it with the CA's own private key. Verification. Anyone who receives the certificate can verify its authenticity using the CA's public key, which is widely distributed and trusted. Why this is correct? The CA's private key is kept secret and secure. The signature proves that the certificate was issued by a trusted CA. It ensures the certificate contents haven't been tampered with. Why not the other options? B. User's private key. The user's private key is used for creating digital signatures, not for certificate signing by the CA. C. User's public key. Public keys are for verification, not signing. D. Its own public key. Public keys are used to verify signatures, not create them. This mechanism establishes the trust chain in SSL/TLS, code signing, and other digital certificate applications. Which of the following classes serves as the superclass for all exception type classes? A. Runtime exceptions. B. Catchable. C. String. D. Throwable. Answer. D. Throwable. Explanation. In Java's exception hierarchy, Throwable is the superclass of all error and exception classes. Here's the hierarchy. Key points. Throwable is the root class at the top of the exception hierarchy. Only objects that are instances of throwable, or its subclasses, can be thrown using the throw statement or caught and catch blocks. Throwable has two main direct subclasses, error and exception. Why not the other options? A. Runtime exceptions. This is a subclass of exception, not the superclass. B. Catchable, not a real class in Java. C. String, completely unrelated to exception handling. This design allows for a unified approach to handling all types of exceptional conditions in Java programs. Which of the following keywords provides iterative control flow? A. Switch statement. B. If statement. C. For. D. Break. Answer. C. For. Explanation. Iterative control flow refers to constructs that allow repeated execution of a block of code, looping. Among the options, C. For. This is an iterative control flow statement that creates loops. It repeatedly executes a block of code a specific number of times or until a condition is met. Why not the other options? A. Switch statement. This is a selection control flow statement that chooses one path from multiple alternatives based on a value, not iterative. B. If statement. This is a conditional control flow statement that executes code based on a Boolean condition, not iterative. D. Break. This is a jump statement used to exit loops or switch statements, but it doesn't create iteration itself. Other iterative control flow keywords in programming languages include while, do while, for each in some languages. The for loop is specifically designed for iteration, making it the clear choice for providing iterative control flow. Which of the following statements about cookies in PHP is correct? A. Can be read by any domain. B. Cannot be retrieved from your computer and returned to the server. C. Is data a web server saves to your computer's hard disk via a web browser? D. Can contain any size of alphanumeric information. Answer. C. Is data a web server saves to your computer's hard disk via a web browser? Explanation. This is the correct and fundamental definition of what a cookie is. C. Is data a web server saves to your computer's hard disk via a web browser? Cookies are small pieces of data that web servers send to browsers. Browsers store these cookies on the user's computer. The browser sends the cookies back to the server with subsequent requests. Why the other options are incorrect? A. Can be read by any domain. False. Cookies are domain-specific due to same origin policy. A cookie set by example.com cannot be read by another site.com. B. Cannot be retrieved from your computer and returned to the server. False. This is exactly how cookies work. Browsers automatically send relevant cookies back to the server with each HTTP request. D. Can contain any size of alphanumeric information. False. Cookies have size limitations, typically 4 kilobytes per cookie, and browsers may impose limits on the total number of cookies per domain. Additional facts about PHP cookies. Created using setCookie function. Accessed via $_cookie superglobal array. Can have expiration dates, paths, and domains specified. Used for session management, user preferences, and tracking. What is the correct statement for declaring and assigning the value of 100 to an integer variable called number? A. Number equals 100. B. Dim number equals int 100. C. Dim number as integer equals 100. D. Dim number equals 10. Answer. C. Dim number as integer equals 100. Explanation. This is the correct syntax for variable declaration and assignment in Visual Basic.NET. C. Dim number as integer equals 100. Dim, keyword to declare a variable. Number, variable name. As integer, explicitly declares the variable as integer type. Equals 100, assigns the value 100 to the variable. Why the other options are incorrect? A. Number equals 100, missing the declaration part, dim and type specification. B. Dim number equals int 100. While this might work through type inference, it's unnecessarily complex. Int 100 is a conversion function not needed for a simple integer assignment. D. Dim number equals 10. This assigns the value 10, not 100 as specified in the question. Additional notes. In modern VB.NET, dim number equals 100 would also work through type inference. But the question specifically asks for an integer variable, making option C the most explicit and correct choice. The syntax follows the pattern dim variable name as data type equals value.